Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining me today. It's Allan Laboucan with the Rocks and Stocks News Show on the 13th of October. Thanksgiving in Canada and Columbus Day or Indigenous Day in the United States. And got an interesting things happen in the silver market that I wanted to talk about today. And so I'm going to get right. Well, I'll give you an outline of what I'm going to do. I'm going to start out with the silver chart and trends. Then I'm going to also talk about some of the companies. Now, I follow about 45 companies currently in my reports that are mixed up between majors, mid-tiers, junior miners, developers, and explorers. And in all of those various categories, I think my total is about 6 or 7 companies. I would like to be following more, but to tell you the truth, there's not a lot of more to follow, which really goes into the one of the key factors, which is the supply chain is very uh, it's broken. That's the easiest way for me to say it. There's not a lot of um, big companies that are focused on silver mining. Most of it comes from mining other metals. And so there's not a lot to choose from in the majors and the mid tiers, not a lot of developers and not a lot of explorers. So what that means over the long term is that the supply chain that is currently constrained will stay that way for many years into the future. And over the last few years, what has driven um, silver and a topic of discussion amongst a lot of silver bulls is that there has been, for about 4 years now, a deficit between the physical supply and the physical demand. Supply coming from mines, demand coming from things like solar panels have been putting a lot of strain on the physical supply. And so what's been filling that is above ground silver. And that is under a lot of pressure of late. And that's why we're seeing, well, one of the reasons that we're seeing a very strong move in the price of silver is because, you can only fill that deficit for so long with what's above ground. And then where do you get more silver? And we're seeing problems from the London Metal Exchange all the way to New York and even places like Perth, the Perth Mint. Apparently, they're down for technical difficulties. They don't really give you an idea how long those technical difficulties are going to last, but I think what's happened is their online has been under so much strain that they can't keep up with everything. And so this is happening in other places as well. India's having issues with physical silver. And so there has been a looming supply crunch coming. And I've even heard someone say unexpected. Well, it's been expected for a long time, especially if you've been listening or checking out the Rocks and Stocks news reports. We've been talking about this for a long time. Well, we're at the crunch point, and that's why silver is doing so well. And the other key factor is that stagflation is starting to kick in a significant way, and you can see that in the gold and the silver price, and actually in the metal stocks, the precious metal stocks. Actually, while gold was going sideways here, the precious metal stocks, the gold and silver stocks, were doing very well over the summertime. And then towards the end of the summer, when the Federal Reserve had their meeting in Jackson Hole, Wyoming, and started to telegraph that they were going to cut interest rates, gold took off that and had a major breakout. And the same is happening with silver. Now, why that's happening is because I think silver, gold, and the silver stocks are all sniffing out stagflation. I've been talking about stagflation in my reports for over a year. I think real stagflation is much more significant than what the government statistics, which I believe overstate the jobs market and understate inflation. The real economy has had stagflation for a significant amount of time now. And now that the jobs markets are in such under such pressure, but the Federal Reserve has to cut interest rates to try to support that, they're throwing inflation under the bus. And so where jobs market goes, so goes the economy. And so if the jobs market's under pressure, it means that the economy is going to be under pressure as well. And these quarter point moves that the Fed is making isn't going to do anything to help the jobs market and the economy. I don't think it's going to be very long before they start slashing by 0.5% and try to get back towards the free money era. And when they do that, they throw inflation under the bus. So if you've got the economy going down towards a recession, and you've got inflation going up, and that's a serious stagflationary problem. That's what gold and silver have been sniffing out. On a longer term basis, the key argument for silver is the supply and demand. As I said earlier, demand is growing and very strong. It's about 200 million, 150 to 200 million ounces above what is produced from mines each year. And that's been that way for the last 4 years. And so now we're coming to that crunch point. And at that crunch point, you also have stagflation kicking in. So this is very bullish for the price of silver. And the physical supply is becoming such a significant problem that the the spot price is currently about $1.50 above the future price that you can see right here. So that backwardation is very interesting because, there's a strong demand for the physical silver, and there's just not enough of it. And now the future price has to catch up. So as you can see here, the last couple of days have been very bullish for silver. But I had talked about back when before it made its breakout to 35 above $35, I had predicted during this sideways action and tightening that the of the range that it was ready for a breakout above $35. And I'm going to have to go back a little further. Actually, I'm going to go back to the monthly chart because I see some phenomenal things in here. So as you can see, at $30 an ounce, this is going back where you can see the 2001 to 2011 metals bull market. And as you can see, it didn't spend very much time, very many months above $30, even less above $35. So when I started to see this action back here, I started to talk about it ready to break out above $35, which it has done and quite substantially. Now, to get my longer term argument about what I see, I'm going back to the monthly because here you've got a cup and handle that the top left of the cup was and the monthly close was about 48 and change. It did touch $50, but the monthly closes was about 48.50. All right. And so that's the top of the left side of the cup. Then you had the cup formation, and now it's going up the right side of the cup. Now, whenever I look at a chart like this and I look at a cup and handle, one thing that I find very bullish is when I see the right side of the cup above the top of the left side of the cup. When it does this, the candle the handle of the cup and handle is very short term. It could be a couple days, maybe a week, where you get some of that choppy action after a big run up the right side of the cup. And I think that's exactly what's going to happen here. Okay. So, again, this $35 level, there it is right there. You can see it spent very little time above that in the history of trading silver. And now it's gone up to over $50 on the futures and 52.27 on the spot price as I was getting ready to do this show. So I think that the spot price is actually going to catch up to or sorry, the futures price is going to play catch up for the next few days to catch up to the spot price and get above it. So the right side will be significantly above the top of the left side, which means that any profit taking will probably be very short term, maybe a couple days or a week at the most, and then onwards and upwards from there. And so now I'm going to zoom in and to the daily again. And so putting that $35 number in context again here, when I was talking about it was ready for a breakout over here to go over 35. We've seen that, and now we made a run to the record high. And I talk about this in the context of the gold bull market. If you could go back to 2020, early 2024, the gold price was sideways around 2000. Okay. And back then I talked about it breaking above 2100 and then setting a series of record highs, which it's done ever since then. And so now what I see for silver, now that it has broken above that $50 level, I think we're going to see a series of record highs, much like we saw in gold. So that's what's happening currently. And I think the benefactors of that are going to be the silver stocks. I see them as very undervalued, even considering the price we have. I'd say that they're maybe pricing silver more like $32 an ounce than $50 an ounce. So I see a lot of pent-up demand there. And so before I get into my picks, some interesting things have been happening with me lately. I live in Mexico. I moved down to Mexico 10 years ago. A lot of my friends in the business, the mining business, know that I live in Mexico. And lately, my phone has been ringing a little more often, and my emails are going off more often. Where my friends in the business are asking me, do I know if there's good mining or good projects for exploration or a development in Mexico? And I do actually. I've been talking to some people because I have the control over a 57 square kilometer project just to the immediate south of, or to the immediate north of the Las Chispas mine, which was one of my great picks over the last few years when I picked Silvercrest early before they brought the Las Chispas mine into production. And since they brought it into production, it was a free cash flow machine. And they were bought out by Core because of the success and the big cash position they built up from mining that deposit. Actually, I'm going to bring up, I don't know if it, I hope you can see this. No, I'm going to do it another way. I'm going to stop share here. Just bear with me 1 second, and I'm going to bring up Google Earth. Okay, so I live down here in the state of Zacatecas, Mexico. So why did I come to the state of Zacatecas, Mexico? Well, I came down here to look at some properties about 10 years ago. and was blown away by the fact that every project we went to, we drove on a road with power right beside the roads. You go off the road, you walk up a few hundred meters, and you can actually be right on the project. For a guy that spent most of my career in Canada, where you got to spend a lot of money flying and then helicopters and then out to camps, it was very refreshing. And so I decided that I wanted to move down to Zacatecas, Mexico. Well, since I've been in Zacatecas, Mexico, I was very fortunate to start doing business with the geologist that ran the Geological Survey of Mexico for 30 years. And so I became very knowledgeable about epithermal vein systems, and they all over Mexico. And that is really important because I often say that if you're interested in silver exploration or mining, all roads lead to Mexico. And so I came here about 10 years ago with the vision that I was going to put together a bunch of projects and start and have a and build a significant silver focused company. Well, silver didn't really cooperate, and that plan kind of changed somewhat. So I'm still down here in Zacatecas, Mexico, and now that the silver price has done so well, I'm getting a lot more phone calls from my friends in the business about moving forward with my long-term plan that I started with down here in about 10 years ago. So I live in the state of Zacatecas, which is part of the Sierra Madre Occidental belt of rocks. So this belt of rocks is part of the North American called Cordillera, and it actually starts way up in Alaska, comes down through the Yukon and through British Columbia, through Nevada, parts of California, and then down into Mexico. And Mexico is 25% of the silver ever produced worldwide has come from Mexico. And inside of Mexico, a large portion of that has come from the state of Zacatecas. In Zacatecas, the city where I live, you see this patch of rocks here? This is where a lot of the mining has happened in and around Zacatecas since the 1500s. And the same thing happened over here in Fresnillo, which is also part of this Zacatecas state. And in Fresnillo, uh, you have a cluster of epithermal veins, and most of the silver mining in Mexico is done in epithermal veins. Epithermal veins are pretty much vertical. They tend to be, 1 to 5, 10 meters wide, and they're very high grade, and they're very low cost to produce from. So they're real free cash flow machines. And so Fresnillo and Zacatecas and many cities in Mexico were really built because of mining. It's almost like you can go from city to city and even the little cities, and they were all built because of mining silver. Okay. And so as you go it's about 35 minutes from Zacatecas, where I live, over to Fresnillo. This is Highway 45. And there was a cluster of epithermal veins right in here. Then that's where the mining started in around the 1500s. And then the Saucito series, and by the way, Fresnillo PLC, which is a major silver miner and the lowest cost silver miner in the world, this is why they're called Fresnillo PLC, is because of the city of Fresnillo. So you've got a cluster of epithermal veins there, and then they found the Saucito series of epithermal veins there. And over here is the Juanicipio mine that Mag Silver, another pick of mine that got bought out recently by another pick of mine, which is Pan American Silver. That's where the Juanicipio mine is, right there. So it's pretty cool. You drive from Zacatecas into Fresnillo and you look out the window and you can see all of these cool mines. And then you keep going down highway. Oh, you keep going down Highway 45 and you come to, let me zoom out a little bit here so it goes a little faster. You come to, it continues over here, Sombrerete mining in there. Again, look at these important rocks. Uh, Durango is up in here, lots of mining in these rocks up here. And then you keep on following it. And actually, at that point, it turns into Highway 40, and Highway 40 goes over to Mazatlan. And along the way to Mazatlan, you find Copala, which is where my another of my picks in silver is Vizsla Silver is developing their mines. So, there's a real highway or corridor of silver, the highway, if you will, where there's mines all along here from Zacatecas, Fresnillo, all the way Durango, all the way over to here, Sombrerete. And so, yeah, I mean, this is one of the most important districts in the world. It is the most important district. Well, Mexico is the most important country in the world for silver production historically, and it continues to be. And that's why I say if you want to look for silver exploration or silver mining, all roads lead to Mexico. All right. So I just thought I'd give you a little update there about how my phone's been ringing with people interested in silver projects here in Mexico. All right. Now I'm going to get into some of my picks. And so I'm going to go from the majors to the junior to the developers and then the explorers. It shouldn't take me too long because I've got about only 6 or 7 picks. So the first one is my major silver pick, which is Pan American Silver. I look at Pan American Silver a lot like I looked at Agnico Eagle when I picked it in early 2024. As I had predicted that gold was going to make an important breakout and then make a series of record highs, the price of Agnico Eagle went up a lot, almost 4 times from where I originally picked it. And why I picked it there um, is because I thought it would perform very well and outperform gold as gold made a series of record highs. And that's why I picked Pan American Silver is because I picked them when silver was trading at about 35. And I think that as silver makes record highs, Pan American Silver will do really well because it's a top of the mind uh, pick or thought when generalist investors think about major silver miners, Pan American Silver comes to mind, and they're a very good operator. They have significantly more cash than they do debt. They produce silver at a low cost and they make a lot of money. And as silver goes into record highs, I think that they'll do much like Agnico Eagle has done over the last year and a half, where they've made consistently record highs in their free cash flow. And so this is the driver of Pan American Silver. So, as they say, they're the world's premier silver mining company. There's their cautionary notes. I'm going to go through their presentation and just see if I can point out some key things. Some of those are where they get their production from. 13% of it comes from Mexico, 11% from Canada. They also get a significant amount from Brazil. And I think the Mexico number is going to go up now that they bought out Mag Silver. Yeah, that's the mix of the countries. All of these countries obviously are important for silver production, and they're in all the important ones. Now, right away, they talk about Juanicipio. This is the one that they bought from Mag Silver. And look at one of the best silver mines globally. What makes it so great is it's high grade and it's low cost, so it has a huge margin and is an impressive free cash flow machine. Here is what the silver production from Juanicipio, and here is the cost all-in sustaining costs. So as you can see, it's somewhere between $10 and $15, let's say $12 an ounce to produce it, and it produces a lot of silver. And when silver's trading at $50, that makes it a free. It was a free cash flow machine at $35 an ounce or less, and it's even more impressive as a free cash flow machine as well. There's some of their facilities, contributes high margin ounces. Juanicipio represents a first quartile silver asset by production and costs. So as you can see, high silver production, low cost, that makes for a free cash flow machine. And now that will start to hit the bottom line soon of Pan American Silver. They talk about the deal. These are a series of deals that gave them total cash proceeds of over $1 billion, and they paid $500 million for Mag Silver. They talk about M&A, transform Pan American into a peer leader. So they've done very good with their mergers and acquisitions, and because they're sitting on so much cash, they can use that cash, over $1 billion in cash, for organic growth, or they can also look at getting more active in the M&A business. So lots of catalysts for growth. Operations generating attractive margins. So that gives you the idea of the margins, and it's only going to go up now that we've got $50 an ounce silver. They talk about their strong financial position, cash and short-term investments of $1.1 billion, total debt of $820 million. So now they can pay more of that debt off or use that cash. It's got a very low interest rate. So 500 million of that is only at 2.63%, coupon maturing in August of 2031. 283 million of that has a 4.6% coupon, and that expires in December of 2027. So I would imagine that the first one they'll get rid of is the 283, but there's no rush to pay this off when you're only paying 2.63%. How they allocate their capital, their developments and exploration highlights on their La Colorada. So they give you a lot of great details in here. I think you should look at this. This is a great place to start your homework on, and look at their news releases. They got a really good website. Let's take a look at their stock. I picked it back here when it was down around the 50-day moving average, let's say at 28-ish. And it closed on Friday. Oh no, this is the New York. So that's today. It closed at $40.82, or 6.03% up, or $2.32. Now, I didn't really pick it because I wanted so thought it would go from 28 to 40. I picked it because I think that as the price of silver, which I expected to go into record territory and make a series of new record highs, that will be very beneficial for their bottom line, and then the stock will perform exceptionally well. It's already done that for me as a pick, and I think more of that is to come. All right, so the next company I'm going to talk about is much smaller than Pan American, which is Sierra Madre Gold and Silver. All right. Oops, did I? Yeah, here's their presentation and their cautionary statements. So Mexico's newest silver and gold producer. They couldn't really pick a better time to become Mexico's newest silver and gold producer. If they did that on purpose, good on them. But they are benefiting from being into a great market that is only going to get better, in my opinion, and affords them the opportunity to grow into a much larger junior silver and gold producer, or maybe even as much as a mid-tier. So they talk about here's the city of Mexico, Mexico City, and over here is their La Guitarra mine. They recently had some really good drill results from that, and so I think you should take a look at that. Um, they talk about here's their key people. Uh, and so La Guitarra. So they've got mines, historical past producers and current producers. And what really impresses me about this project is how wide open it is for exploration. They talk about full commercial production started in January of 2025, high-grade underground mine that operated up to 2018, and then they brought it back in. So silver was a lot cheaper in 2018, makes a big difference in 2025. Functional, expandable, 500 ton per day crushing, grinding, and flotation facility. They're doing something to increase that. Exploration potential over 59 kilometers of untested structures. Now, a lot of these companies that I'm going to talk about with these epithermal vein clusters, they can be very large and they need a lot more drilling. Oftentimes, you start out with one and you just keep expanding from there. And I think they've got that potential on the project. They talk about their resources of gold and silver, uh, low risk mine restart completed. The same management that now runs Sierra Madre was part of the team that had it into production back in 2006 to 2009. So they know this project very well. And I always love to see the team back together and moving the company and the projects forward that they know a lot about. So, and this is also something that happens in mining where you see the price of a metal go down, which puts a mine into challenging financials, and then the price goes up, and it's a much better situation with silver and gold much higher. So they talk about a three-pronged approach to production: commercial production from Guitarra, which started in January 1st of 2025. They talk about district scale exploration and mine development to increase the production and evaluate mining options, how they can increase their production and also decrease their costs. So here they go into more details. This is what I wanted to see. So remember when I was talking about Fresnillo? Well, this is an epithermal vein cluster, okay? And the cluster in Fresnillo has been, and Zacatecas City have been mined since the 1500s. And then about 40, 50 years ago, they found Saucito. about 10, 15 years ago, they found mag silver, and that whole district could fit inside of this. So, they Colossal Mine and Nazareno, and these are where they are mining, but they have lots of exploration potential on these other veins in the cluster. Same thing on their Temiscaltepec East District. They talk about look at the cluster of epithermal veins there, wide open. These things have never really gone through modern exploration. La Guitarra mine in the Western District. So yeah, lots of really good information in there about the quality of their project, and it's wide open. So they're producing, and they got lots of room to keep producing, produce more, and keep that happening for a very long period into the future. All right, so that's the Sierra Madre. Let's look at their stock. Sierra Madre dot V. There it is. Okay, so I picked Sierra Madre at about 70 some cents, and it's now trading at $1.48. This is the close on Friday because they trade in on the Toronto Stock Exchange Venture Market. That's closed today due to the Thanksgiving holiday in Canada. So on Friday, they were up 9.63% or 13 cents a share to $1.48. So, as the silver price is improving, since I showed you that chart earlier, back when the Federal Reserve were talking about getting ready to cut interest rates, they were trading at a dollar or 80 some cents. Now they're trading at $1.48. So they've done very well. And with their pipeline and what they're working on and all the news, I think they're a catalyst rich junior that we'll have lots to talk about in the not too distant future. Okay, now I'm going to move over to Blackrock. BlackRock is a silver development company, okay? And they've got a great project in Nevada. They talk about Nevada being the silver state. I think when everybody thinks about our gold, our Nevada, they think about all the gold, but it actually started from silver. And one of the main camps in the silver was Tonopah. And they have the western side of the Tonopah district. And in that, they have done a resource calculation where they've got over 100 million ounces of silver at a 493 grams silver equivalent. So it's a combination of silver and gold. And 5 million tons are also at even a higher grade. So they really have one of the best undeveloped high grade silver. It's not nearly as big as my Vizsla Silver, but it certainly could get there because they've been doing a lot of interesting drilling to increase their production. Here is a sample of an epithermal vein. It's a great example because it shows you that these banding, which is, you can kind of think of it like a boiling pot of water. And in fact, in an epithermal vein, they talk about the boiling point, which is where the temperature and pressure is just right for silver and gold to be contained in. And when you see these, it's almost like the heat, the temperature on the boiling pot of water was turned up and down over millions of years, and each one of these bands is like a different time in the formation of this vein. Okay. This was a PEA that they did in 2024, and they're working towards a new updated one in 2026. So at the time of doing this one, they had a smaller inventory of silver in their resources. Since then, they've done a lot to increase that, and also the price of silver and gold are up quite dramatically. But even looking at $1,900 of gold and $23 silver, so basically, not basically, they both doubled since then. It still had an after tax internal rate of return of 39 million or 39% and a low capex to build it, a low all-in sustaining cost, significant like 9 million ounces of annual production of silver equivalent, but it only had a 7.8-year mine life and 2.3 years of payback. So with the current prices and the current increase to their resources, these numbers will be updated. But the thing that you want, a really great thing about this is this average head grade of 570 grams per ton of silver equivalent, and it's amongst developers by a wide margin. It's the leader by a wide margin. Okay, so here's their 2025 resource estimate. Now, this one that was done was only upgrading some of their material in the resource from inferred to measured and indicated. There's a new one coming out that is the drilling to expand the resource estimate. Okay. So what they've been doing here, over here was the historical mining. Here's the old claim maps for Tonopah. And basically they own the western side of this old map here. And here you can see where there's the Victor resource, the DPB North resource, DPB South resource, and the Step Out resource. And now they're drilling these purple areas to expand. This one will be important because it could tie these two resources together. This is important to expand to the south and southeast. This is important as it could connect those two, Victor and the DPB North. And then this is important because it could extend the DPB North up in this direction. So as you can see, they've been doing a lot of drilling to expand on the resource. Here's some of the plan maps. Cross sections shows you the cluster of epithermal veins, and this is the nature of these epithermal veins. They're like 1 to 5, 10 meters wide, but they're loaded up with very high grade, and that becomes very profitable to mine. As you can see from their high IRR, even using gold and silver at half the price it currently is. Uh, so these dots represent the 2024 and 2025, or the pink and the purple. So as you can see, they've been doing a lot of drilling. These are the color locations of where they started the drilling. And then these other colored, sort of green, yellow, and blue are what went into their past resource. Here's the underground schematic of what it'll look like as they get into these underground workings. Here's the design of the mine, sensitivities to price. So lots of good stuff in there for you to check out. And they got a lot of news pending, so you want to keep a close eye on Blackrock. BRC, there they are. Now, they've also had a very important breakout since the April, May, June window when they broke significantly above the 50-day and 200-day moving average. Then they had a golden cross in July. And as you can see, they've been quite significantly above the 50-day moving average. And the trajectory of the 50-day moving average is very bullish. As you can see, when it got down near the 50-day moving average, it bounced off and upwards from there quite significantly. It did it here. It did it here. Not, it didn't get too close there since it broke out above the 50-day moving average. So considering that they've got a lot of pending news from the drilling, the resource updates, the preliminary economic assessment update. After that, I would imagine that they'll work on feasibility type studies and keep growing the deposits. So they got a lot of catalysts ahead of them. A great project. I think it will be developed into a mine. And I actually hope that Blackrock Silver gets the opportunity to bring it into production. A lot of investors in this space like to look at these things as takeover targets, but a lot of times, your price of your takeover is leaving a lot of meat on the bone. And considering where gold and silver is going, I think that they could do much better by bringing it into production. And with 150 million-ish type cost to bring it into production, that's something that's well within the realm of what a junior can do. And so that's the BlackRock story. Now I'm going to move on to my Vizsla Silver. Vizsla Silver, I consider a silver unicorn. And why I say that, and by the way, bear in mind that they are a sponsor of my work, and so keep that bias in mind. But why I think that they are in the making of a silver unicorn that will become the next major silver miner is because of the quality of their Panuco project and the cash. They've already got about 2 times the cost to bring it into production in the treasury. And they got a wonderful team that includes Simon Smirlik, who has built about 40 or 50 mines in his career. In fact, earlier I was talking about Las Chispas and Silvercrest. He was the one who built that on time, on budget, when it was being built back in 2021, when there was a lot of inflation and they had to deal with COVID, and yet they were still able to bring it into production on time and on budget. And the similarities between the cluster of veins at Las Chispas and how you would mine that is very much like Vizsla and their Panuco project. And earlier I was talking about that highway that leads from to Mazatlan. Well, there's the highway right there, and their project is over in here. And so pretty good access, you might say. And okay, so they talk about developing a world-class silver asset in Mexico. A lot of times that world class gets used in the mining business and not accurately. In the case of Panuco, it definitely is that kind of a project. Uh, World's largest single asset silver primary producer. That's their vision. And they're doing that through exploration and development of the Panuco district in Mexico. Here are some of the key people. Michael Conard, very talented CEO. I've done several interviews with Michael. You can find those on my YouTube channel at Rocks and Stocks News on YouTube, or you can also find them on my Substack at rocksandstocks.substack.com. Craig Perry is a very talented guy as well. He was part of Inventa Capital with Michael Connor, director of Skeena Resources that's had a lot of success, founding director of NextGen, which is one of the greatest undeveloped uranium mines in the world. Very talented guy, highly respected in the mining business. Simon Smirlik is a consummate mine builder, and he built the Silvercrest Las Chispas mine, where he was working for a company that does that. The company escapes my Ausenco. He was the former chief operating officer of Ausenco, who built, he spent 30 years there, and I think it's something like 40 mines were built under his direction. So they really couldn't have a better mine developer than Simon Smirlik as their CEO. Their Jesus Velador. I've also had the pleasure of interviewing Jesus when we wanted to talk about a month ago or so. I wanted to talk to him about their work they were doing on the exploration side, and we had a great conversation. You can find that on my YouTube channel as well. Jesus is a very talented, brilliant guy, written papers on epithermal veins, spent his 25-year career on epithermal veins, really brilliant guy. Eduardo Luna, he's a Mexican Mining Hall of Fame member. He was a director of core mining, president of the Mexican Mining Chamber and Silver Institute, was a director of Wheaton Precious Metals, senior executive at Pinoles, Gold Corp, Lewisman, Alamos Gold, and Primero. So Eduardo is, in Mexico, he's a legend, and he opens a lot of doors for the company. They talk about the development timeline to get their first silver production in late 2027, start construction in late 2026. They're working on a feasibility study. So as you can, and they're doing a lot of exploration work. So they got tons of news coming out. They're fully financed and de-risking the final milestones. So they've got a big chunk of cash that they're going to need to build the mine. They actually have about double the cost to bring the mine into production. So they're in a very strong financial footing. They talk about advanced development, exploration upside. Again, a good one to do your homework on the exploration is to go and look for that interview that I did with Jesus Velador. There's the Panuco Silver District. Panuco, I showed you the highway going through the Panuco project. They also acquired this big Santa Fe project and La Garra. This is the key focus, but this is organic growth potential on those two projects. Infrastructure, high tension power going right beside that highway that cuts right through their property. Here they show you the resource, Copala and Napoleon, and that only is represented by what's in this blue square here. All of this remains wide open. And all of these are known veins that have not seen the same kind of exploration work as Copala and Napoleon. Here's the PEA, which is just off the charts. 86% IRR, 9-month payback. And that was when using a base case scenario of $26 per ounce of silver and a $1,975 per ounce of gold. Now that has doubled, and it'll be interesting to see how this internal rate of return changes when they do the feasibility study. And that will also bring this payback down to maybe a few months at the most. So, that's pretty impressive when you think about it, because the capex is 220, about 225 million. So if you use current prices, you could pay that off every 3 months. That's a lot of free cash flow, folks. Here they show you again the overall claim of Panuco, and this is their other project that they recently acquired. Something I want to show you here. So they're doing more drilling on to extend these known veins. I want to see. There's a project. Like they've done all their work at Copala, but there's a project, there's a vein that they recently started drilling that I think could be their next big one. So here's the known ones over here. This Animus. this is a new one that's an up and comer. I think you're going to be hearing a lot about that. And it could be like their Copala and 2.0, if you will, just sitting over in this cluster over here of epithermal veins. Had some really good numbers coming out of that. Look at 5.8 meters of true width at 653 grams per ton of silver and 4.26%, or sorry, 4.26 grams per ton of gold. Super high grade there, folks. And they're just getting into this animus vein. Without a doubt, I think you're going to hear more about that in the not too distant future. Okay, so that is the Vizsla story. I encourage you to go look at the many interviews that I've done with Michael Connart and also with Jesus Velador. So this is the New York Stock Exchange listing and performed very well today, up 7.3% or 33 cents per share to $4.85. So, it's doing its job. And even the aftermarket, it's up another percent. So, that's out, although silver was up about 4 or 5% today, this is outperforming, and this is why you want to look at silver stocks. And when it comes to a silver company, they have a phenomenal story. I just talked about a lot of it. I talk about a lot of it with Michael Connard in the interviews, Jesus Velador. And yeah, they got a lot of news coming out from their drilling, their feasibility studies, the underground workings that they're doing. Just a catalyst rich company. So stay tuned for more from Vizsla Silver. Okay, now I'm going to move down the food chain to my explorers. And one of those explorers, and it's all alphabetical in each category, so I'm not prioritizing. When I talk about in each category, it's by alphabet. So here, Argenta Silver, and what I did is I brought up their news section. And so this can actually, the headlines alone can tell you a lot about what's happening. So in May, they talked about mobilizing for their 2025 drilling program at El Quevar project in Argentina. Then in July, they had some great results, 533 grams per ton of silver over 20.20 meters, including 3,549 grams per ton of silver over a meter from its inaugural drill program at El Cavar. The good news of that helped them get $10 million together in a bought deal private placement, which they had to upgrade, increase to 13 million. And Eduardo Elsenstein, he increased his position by 2.5 million. So they had to to increase that to 15 million. And then they did a closing of that additional private placement from Eduardo. This was the closing of the bought deal, which ended up getting topped out to 15 million. So that loaded them up with cash. And then they started putting out their assay results. On August the 13th, they drilled 1,000 grams per ton of silver over 40 meters, including 18,467 grams per ton of silver over a meter on its drill program at El Quevar. And then this one was out September 23rd, so a couple weeks ago. And I'll pull this up because we can look at some cool maps. As I talked about this, Argenta Silver drills 545 grams per ton of silver over 43.20 meters, including 1,300 grams per ton of silver over 8 meters in a 70-meter step-out drill hole, and defines a new exploration target. Okay, so here they give you the highlights of the drilling. Here is a good quote from Joaquin Marias, I'm working towards getting an interview with Joaquin, so stay tuned for that. They're about to start their winter drill program, so 2000 third group of results. Also, sorry, it's upside down in Argentina. In the southern hemisphere, they just went through their winter and now they're coming into their summer, while us in the northern hemisphere have gone through our summer and are about to head in towards the winter. Okay, so they're talking about the winter program, which was 4,000 meters, and then they're getting ready to do their summer program. Here is this was a known resource with about 50 million ounces of silver on it. It was worked on years ago when silver was much cheaper than it is now. And so they've gone back in there and they looked at it and said, well, we think we can increase the resource from the 54 million ounces of silver, and it's pure silver project, by the way, folks. There's no other metals associated with this, which makes it quite unique as well. So they've been tying together this resource to increase the size of it, but they have plenty of other targets as well. And here's a cross section. Now, look at this is like cutting a cake in the side and then looking at it from the side. So you can see all the high grade distributed in the resource, and it comes this direction. And then you look at some of these high grade intersections to increase. It's a little difficult to think of this as three dimensions because it's on a plane. And so you can't really see, like, you might have a series of holes here, and then over here you got another one. So it might look like it's in with all the other series, but it's actually coming towards us in this page. So they got this step out hole was very good, very good. And then look at when they get well beyond where, I mean, there's been minimal drilling down in here, but look at what they get, and virtually none over here. And look at what they got. That's that 545 grammer of over 43 meters. So it's thick and it's, I got to find out what the true width of that is, but thick and super high grade. And you can see the high grade is distributed in various different portions of that hole, which are represented by the purple or pink and the reds. So the reds and the pinks are your highest grade. So that big high grade one would be this pink here, which would be 1,300 grams over 8 meters. Just beautiful looking stuff for an epithermal vein. This is what makes great mines. And, it's wide open to keep growing it as you get deeper into the system. Here's some beautiful looking epithermal veins. Um, when you're looking at an epithermal vein, folks, you see this banding here, all this banding. Well, what epithermal veins are, you can think of them like a boiling pot of water. And when you're in the boiling zone of that pot of water, that's where the bonanza grades are. And it's almost like you can think of turning the temperature on and turning it off, turning it on, turning it off. And each time you turn it on and off over millions of years, you get these different boiling times, and you get these banded formations. And that's what you're seeing, especially over here. You can really see a lot of banding. This is what you want to see. If you're in an epithermal vein system and you're above the boiling zone, it's more brecciated rock. That is a combination of quartz and country rock. And, that dilutes the grade. So sometimes in an epithermal vein, you can drill the boiling zone and think you got nothing, or sniffs of gold or silver. You drill into the boiling zone and you got magic. And that's what they have here. Uh, okay, that's it. And as I said, I am working towards getting an interview with Argenta, so stay tuned for that. Let's have a look at their stock. Uh, Argenta. So again, they're on the venture exchange, only been trading since late 2024, had a beautiful cup and handle for a brand new trading company. And look at how short that handle was, and then onwards and upwards from there. It's been a while since they had news out. And so when that happens in an Explorer, it can soften up. But the quality of this project has me not concerned one iota of whether they can deliver additional high grade gold. So when they come down like that, it's a good time to look at them. And that's what I would do if I were you. I will probably be taking a position in this one in the not too distant future. Okay, next up is Kootenay Silver. Kootenay is quality silver assets are scarce. We have several. And again, a lot of times I go through the headlines and I tell how a project is going forward. So as you can see, in January they talked about 1,440 grams of silver, 3.1% lead and zinc. February they had more of that high grade, super high grade material. In May again, they did updated mineral resource estimate. Then they got a $12 million bought deal financing. Here is the details of their resource estimate. Now it currently stands at 54 million ounces at 284 grams per ton of silver. And a general rule of thumb with silver companies is you want to see them get to about 100 million ounces. And the reason for that rule of thumb is that gives you about 10 years of 10 million ounce production. So, they got the next step is to increase that, and you do that through drilling. So let's see what happened. After that, they got upsized the bought deal to 17.4 million. Then they closed it at 20 million. So lots of interest in that financing, a good sign. Then they talked about commencing their 50,000-meter drilling program at Columba, a high-grade gold and silver project, which is their flagship project. They filed the technical report for that resource, added a new CPA to their board, and Kootenay continues drilling with 2 drill rigs at Columba with 5 holes completed. So those assay results will be pending now. Let's see what this news release says. Announced they're drilling with 2 rigs on their 100% dome project in Chihuahua, Mexico. They talk about the resource, quote from their CEO and their VP exploration. Their VPX said, and I quote, "It will be exciting to test extensions of the resource bodies, especially along the open-ended trends of thickened zones such as seen in hole 110, 125, and 199 in the D vein, where respective drill intercepts of 17.8 meters of 650 grams per ton of silver and 9.7 meters of 1,746 grams per ton of silver and 16 meters of 620 grams per ton of silver were hit." So some very good looking numbers there, folks. So yeah, when it comes to an explorer slash developer, early days of developing, I guess you could say. The news they generate is very important. And let's have a look at their stock, Kootenay Silver. So as you can see, they made an important breakout in May above the 50-day moving average, have been doing very well ever since, on a nice trajectory. I've been following this company for quite some time, since they were about, I want to say, about 70 cents a share. They traded on Friday, closed at $1.66. They were down slightly, 2.35% or 4 cents a share. And again, when an explorer is doing a lot of drilling and everybody's waiting for assay results, people get a little twitchy and sometimes they hit that sell button. But as far as their ability to keep delivering really high grade silver, I think they'll have no problem doing that. So this is a good time to take a look at Kootenay Silver. All right. Okay, so that's the Kootenay Silver story. Next up is Mithril. Mithril is a brand new pick. I think I picked it like 3 weeks ago or 2 weeks ago. And they had after I picked them, they had this silver rich target number 5, which they sampled up to 3,300 grams of silver and 2 grams of gold over a meter. The highlights are that the first 9 holes completed at target 5, with the assays are pending. They did the sampling and mapping on target 5 to expand on it. Target 3 drill plan advancing with pads and access roads under development. So that will start up probably any time now. You'll see a news release on that. District-wide aerial mag survey to commence later this month. So sometime in October. Petrographic work, mineralized horizon, pretty big. Um, they're in Mexico. Let me see if they got any good maps here. Love my maps. So here's the Mithril project. Copalquin, I think is how you say that. Here is Fresnillo's La Cienega. This project is in the northern part of Durango. So up here's Durango City. Down here is can't see it, but that's where Vizsla is. So Durango has some great mines in it as well, and they're up here in the northwestern side. Here they show you look at all the mine pits and mine adits. So, these historical miners, they do a great job. They weren't in there for their health. They were in there finding silver and gold. That's why you see these and when you get a lot of this, it tells you there was a lot of gold or silver. And they could find it right at the surface and chase it down, not very far below the surface. Sometimes they'd even put mine shafts in there, like they say talk about here. Oh, look at all of this mineralization all over the place, folks. Really impressive stuff. Uh, Good grades, 3 meters. So that's your typical, Mexican epithermal vein. But look at the grades, 2 grams of gold, 1,938 grams of silver. These make for great mines in Mexico. This is showing you the veins. So this is a cluster of epithermal veins here, and you can see all the mineralization associated with them. So as you can see, they got a lot of exploration ahead of them. And there you go again. Look at all the mineralization and drill holes historic and where they're drilling now to grow this thing. And that happens a lot, folks. When silver prices are much cheaper, they can get a lot of work, but then the project gets put on the back burner when the price of silver goes down. Then it goes up, and you come back, and these projects look really great at $50 an ounce of silver and $2,000 an ounce gold. Okay, so that's the Mithril story. Let's look at their stock chart. They are MSG. They actually trade in Australia as well. Mithril Silver and Gold. This is their Toronto listing, so they haven't been trading for very long. They're a patchy trader in Toronto, but I understand they trade a lot more in Australia. But the general trend, as they've been starting to do work, and with all the work that they have coming out, I think you're going to see this has the potential to go much higher. So you can't really, let me see if I can find let's see, I don't know, I'm not going to bother because stock charts. I don't think it gives you listings for Australia, but have a look at their Australian symbol as well, which is where are we here? Their Australian symbol is in the ASX, it's MTH. Let's see. I don't even know if stock charts MTH. Maybe I got to put a dot A. No, stock charts doesn't give you Australian listed companies. And it's certainly not Meritage. Let me see, MSG. Okay, so yeah, take a look at Mithril. I like the work they're doing and the project that they have. All right, now I'm going to come to my final company today, which is Pacifica Silver Corporation. Let's do the little run through of their news in since July. So they closed a $1 million financing in July. Then they announced a $10 million private placement to fund exploration at the Claudia project. Participants include Vizsla Silver and First Majestic Silver. So bigger companies investing in Pacifica. Good sign. Okay. They did their annual general meeting. Then they closed that first tranche of the 10 million private placement and they welcomed Vizsla Silver, First Majestic Silver, Silver Corp, and Eric Sprott as shareholders. So three companies that are in the silver business invested in Pacifica Silver Exploration Company, as well as Eric Sprott, who is one of the world's largest silver bulls and very rich. And because he's a gold and silver bull who's made a lot of money over the years. Then they closed their $10 million private placement, got listed on the OTCQB board in the United States, appointed a new person. Silver Pacific outlines fall 2025 exploration program at Claudia. Did some options. Pacifica identifies new extension to mineralized veins at Claudia. Let's have a read of this. This is their most recent news release. Wow, there's some beautiful looking drill core there. Nice epithermal veins. Extensions to mineralized veins at Claudia Silver Gold Project. Phase 1 drilling program update. So they had previous drill results. Look at this: 23 grams of gold and 480 grams of silver from rock chip sampling in 2022. Those are the kind of things that get those other investors investing in a junior that's in the same business. The company's phase 1 drill program has been underway since September 22nd. So just like 3 weeks since they started drilling. So just be patient. They got a really good project here, and they're getting their drilling underway. Here you can see a beautiful cluster of epithermal veins. Look at this is the inset. Here's the what this represents is over here. But look at how widespread those epithermal veins are for kilometers. And this is sample results. So grades of silver and gold all over these epithermal veins. This is a spectacular exploration project in Mexico. This could be an entire cluster of epithermal veins contained within their project. That's why they got the attention of those key investors, those strategic investors. And this is a spectacular project that I'll be watching very closely for their drill results as it goes forward. And I think they'll be having drill results for the foreseeable future. PS, I get this name. Hold on a second. Pacifica. There it is. PSIL. Pacifica Silver. So they've only been trading since for about a year now. And it really came to life when they started doing those financings and also talking about drilling and doing the surface sampling. When that all started, they were trading at about 50 cents a share, 56 cents a share. They closed on Friday at $1.35. They still have a very modest market value. And I really am excited about this program. I think they got the kind of project that could drive them into being a very serious silver company. I love seeing those big clusters all contained within one project, and it doesn't take very many veins in a cluster of epithermal veins in Mexico to make for a phenomenal mining operation. So let's see how it goes with their drilling, but I have a lot of reasons to believe that they will deliver exciting results with their drilling. All right, that's the show. That's the silver show for today. The silver lining, if you will. As always, do your homework, speak with your financial advisors before making any investment decisions. I'm merely an idea generator. I don't make buying or selling recommendations. That's up to you to do your homework and speak with your financial advisors to assess your risk tolerance and whether or not you want to buy or own this company or any companies that I talk about. But on that note, have a great day and we will talk to you soon.